Today, I want to show you the SwiftUI modifiers that can be used to animate simple value changes. I've prepared an example here where I apply a scale effect based on a state variable. And if I want to animate something like this nowadays, I'll use the animation modifier that has the body parameter. This is available since iOS 17. The first parameter is the timing curve. I will use the default one, and then I get past the view that's modified, and I can apply a modifier here, and this change then is animated with this timing curve. The advantage of this compared to the other methods to do animation like this, I will show you the other ways in a second too, is that this is very precise. You specify very precisely to which view this change is applied, and that only this is animated. The other approaches are not that precise, so I would say this is preferred nowadays. And I also wanted to play around a little bit with the timing curves, like besides default, like the simplest one is linear. You can make it go very slowly. There are also modifiers for the timing curves. For example, you could say it should repeat. And there are also like nice presets, like the usual ones, like ease in, ease out, ease in and out, that make it go a little bit quicker in the beginning, a little bit slower in the end. Also very nice are things like snappy or smooth, which are like, and bouncy, which are like presets that are provided on iOS. I will use default here, which is just a nice default timing curve. One thing that you can do with this API is you can mix different animations easily. Like for example, I could have a very slow change for the scale effect and add another animation that, for example, changes the corner radius. And I could do this like quick. So because here we are now so precise with what is applied to what, which changes applied to what, it's possible to customize and tweak every single change. But there are also things that you cannot do with this API. For example, when you in general have to be a little bit careful, some things in SwiftUI Animations just don't work, or you have to find out if they work, and sometimes it can be a little bit surprising. For example, some modifiers are not animatable, like the frame modifier is not animatable. And the other thing, for example, that's not that easy to animate with this API is changing the color, because foreground color and foreground style, foreground color even is old school nowadays. It's deprecated. Foreground style is used in general, or should be used in general. And this also does not animate because it just specifies a preference for the elements that are modified by it to say, if possible, make them red. An attribute that is animatable is the fill. This is from the shape itself, but this cannot be animated using this modifier, because like when I apply an animation to the shape, it will always result in a view passed in here. It's converted to a view, and then I cannot use the fill modifier here in this context. But you can use the other approach to animate value changes is to use the animation modifier with a value parameter. Here you pass a timeline as well, and you pass a value, and when this value changes, everything that is caused by this value changing is then animated. So I can include the color here now as well, because we don't have the problem with the shape type as before. And we see when the value changes, these transitions are now animated. But you have to be careful about one thing here, and I want to show you this in an example. I've prepared this code here where I have two shapes and they are enlarged by two different state variables, and I change both of them at the same time. Now, if I add an animation to this that is triggered by one of these attributes, you might be surprised that the change caused by the other one also is animated. You see, isLeftLarge triggers the animation, but this happens like in kind of a transaction, or I would call everything, I would say everything that's in the same update cycle. Usually that's the event that's processed. Everything that happens in this cycle is also animated. So here both modifiers get the animation applied. This is just something, often it's not a problem, but this is something you need to be aware when using this modifier. It's applied transactional to all the changes that happen. We can work around here by scoping this correctly. Like, it's preferred not to have this modifier on the outer view. I just did that to demonstrate the issue. If I put it in here, this animation is now only scoped to this view, so isWriteLarge here will not be affected by the animation. But I think it's important to be aware of it. You need to be, especially when it's not as straightforward as it is here in this example, if state changes are more complex, you need to be aware of what else changes at the same time, and this might also get the animation. At last, I want to show you yet another way to animate value changes in SwiftUI applications, which is you can wrap a value change in a withAnimation block, pass the timing curve there, and then all the modifiers that are affected by this value change will animate as well. And this sometimes has use cases because here we are very precise with the value change, and it's also causes a separate transaction to be applied. Like another workaround for the example we've seen before, this we could wrap it in withAnimation. Then this work as well, because this is now running in its own transaction. But in an example like this, I would prefer the animation modifier with the body, or if not possible, with the value. Because in actual applications, it's often not as simple as it is in here. Because usually a value like this is not stored in the view itself. It might be in a view model, for example, a class that is responsible for persistence or for fetching data from the network. And in these kind of classes, I don't want to have withAnimation blocks because they should be independent from the UI. So then I would have the problem, how do I wrap those in withAnimation? Or even for state variables that are in the view, often these are changed in different places. So I tend to, for these reasons, I tend to avoid this modifier. So that's the 3 different ways to add animations to value changes in SwiftUI apps. Have great fun adding them to your apps and making your apps come alive with animations.